The Roman lines were breaking. On the hillside, Gallic warriors poured in, 60,000 of them, striking at the weakest point in Caesar's outer defences. Inside Alesia, Vercingetorix launched a desperate sally. The Romans were outnumbered, exhausted, and beginning to falter. Then, through the dust and chaos, Caesar appeared. Calm, silent, wearing his scarlet cloak, he brought fresh cohorts. He didn't shout, he didn't hesitate. He drew his sword, gave the signal, and charged forward with his men, the Roman wave surging toward the breach. Caesar might have been great at building massive fortifications, but if he had to rebuild an entire civilization from scratch, he'd probably need a guide. Lucky for us, I found the best one out there. The ultimate guide to rebuilding civilization is not only packed with real practical knowledge, from making mirrors to rotating crops to generating electricity, but it's also beautifully illustrated. What really stood out to me was the incredible artistic value that comes with all that useful info. Check out the link in the description and grab your copy now. Julius Caesar, fresh off his first term as consul in Rome, wasn't ready to fade into the background. He had his sights set on something much bigger: glory, power, and a legacy. Thanks to the political alliance known as the First Triumvirate, Caesar managed to get himself appointed as governor, or proconsul, of 3 provinces: Cisalpine Gaul, that's basically northern Italy, Avaricum, along the Adriatic Sea, and Gallia Narbonensis, modern-day southern France. Usually this kind of position lasted 1 year, but Caesar scored a 5-year term. And along with that, he got command of 4 legions. With that kind of military might and a lot of ambition, Caesar headed north to make his mark. He didn't waste time. When the Helvetii, a group of tribes from what we now call Switzerland, decided to migrate west through Gaul, Caesar told them no. They tried to force their way through anyway, attacking some local tribes. Those tribes cried out to Caesar for help. He returned with reinforcements, and with his Gallic allies, he crushed the Helvetii. Then came the Suebi, a powerful Germanic tribe, causing trouble across the Rhine. The Gauls, already nervous, asked Caesar to help again. He beat the Suebi, and to really hammer in the message that Rome meant business, he actually crossed the Rhine in 56 BC, just to show that he could. Caesar wasn't just fighting battles, he was building a reputation. Every victory brought him more wealth from spoils and more respect back in Rome. Over the next years, he fought and conquered tribe after tribe, the Belgae in the north, coastal tribes in the west, and many others who had never been under Roman control. But not everyone was thrilled with this Roman expansion. The Gallic people had been divided for years. Their tribal rivalries made them easy targets, but over time, as Caesar tightened his grip on the region, those divisions started to fade, especially when he made one bold move in 53 BC. He announced that Gaul was now a Roman province. That meant Roman laws, Roman taxes, and Roman control. For the Gauls, this was a huge deal, especially for the Carnutes, guardians of a sacred central land where druids from all tribes gathered to settle disputes. If Rome took that, it wasn't just land being taken, it was their identity, their culture, their beliefs. And that's when something big happened. Over the winter, a young charismatic leader named Vercingetorix stepped up. He was a noble of the Arvini tribe, and he managed something that had never been done before. He united the Gallic tribes. This wasn't just a small rebellion, it was a full-scale revolt. Now Caesar was actually in Rome when the news of the rebellion reached him. He rushed back to the front. First, he made sure the Roman provinces like Provence were secure, then marched north toward the heart of Gaul. It was a winter, and supplies were low. Caesar needed food and reinforcements. To get them, he began capturing Gallic strongholds along the way. Meanwhile, Vercingetorix was being smart. Instead of meeting Caesar in open battle, he used a strategy of starvation. He burned towns and crops ahead of Caesar, so the Romans couldn't use them. He avoided direct fights and focused on cutting off Caesar's supplies. Eventually, the two sides clashed at the siege of Avaricum. Vercingetorix didn't even want to defend the town, but the local tribe begged him so he camped his army outside while the Romans built siege engines and fortified their camp, all in brutal winter weather. After 25 days, Caesar saw his chance. A storm rolled in. While the Gallic sentries were distracted, he launched his attack. Siege towers rolled up, Roman artillery hammered the walls, and when a breach opened, the Romans stormed in. The town fell, and what followed was brutal. Caesar claimed his men killed 40,000 and took no prisoners. Even with this horror, the Gallic coalition didn't fall apart. In fact, more tribes, like the Aedui, once allies of Rome, joined the revolt. Caesar was feeling the squeeze. His supply lines were under threat, and he had to keep moving. Vercingetorix next retreated to his home turf, Gergovia. Caesar followed, hoping to end the rebellion quickly. He built camps, tried to draw Vercingetorix out, and then launched what seems to have been a direct assault. Caesar would later claim it was a mistake, that he never meant for the full attack to happen, but modern historians think he did order the attack and just wanted to save face after it failed. The Battle of Gergovia was a disaster for Caesar. He lost hundreds of men, including 46 of his centurions, seasoned officers. He had to retreat, and Vercingetorix? His victory made him a hero. More tribes rallied to his cause, but Caesar wasn't finished yet. He regrouped, called in reinforcements, and even recruited Germanic cavalry. Then, in a quick and decisive cavalry battle at the Vingane River, he beat Vercingetorix's forces again. It wasn't the end, but it gave him some breathing room. With his cavalry defeated, Vercingetorix withdrew to the fortified hilltop town of Alesia. Deep in the territory of the Mandubii, he believed he would turn the town into a trap, a place to draw in Caesar's legions, hold them in place, and then crush them with a relief force from the surrounding tribes. But Caesar had no plans to walk into a trap. He wouldn't attack Alesia directly. After the costly failure at Gergovia, he knew better. Instead, he aimed to starve the defenders out. So he began one of the most ambitious siege operations in the ancient world. Using tens of thousands of legionaries and local resources, Caesar's men built a ring of fortifications around Alesia. They dug trenches, raised walls, set watchtowers, and laid traps. All designed to keep the Gauls in and any help from getting in. And when news came that a massive Gallic relief force was on its way, Caesar ordered a second line of defenses, this time facing outward. The Romans were now between two enemies, the defenders inside Alesia and the relief army that was gathering beyond the hills. Inside the town, Vercingetorix realized the danger. He sent out his cavalry under the cover of night, ordering them to rally every tribe they could. The call for help spread fast. Soon, a huge relief army, tens of thousands strong, was making its way to Alesia. Food inside the town was running low. The defenders rationed grain. Eventually, the old and sick, even women and children, were sent out of the city to save supplies. But Caesar refused to let them through. Trapped between the walls of Alesia and the Roman lines, many starved in the open. Then came the first major push. The Gallic relief force arrived and set up camp about a mile away. The very next day, they launched a two-sided assault, from outside and inside, all at once. The Gauls inside Alesia threw open their gates and struck the Roman lines from behind, while the relief army stormed the outer defenses. Caesar had been waiting for this. He ordered his commanders to hold firm. Mark Antony and Trebonius brought in reinforcements from the furthest forts. Fighting raged through the night, with Roman soldiers running from post to post. Plugging gaps in the line, trading volleys of javelins, and clashing swords with attackers trying to scale the walls. As dawn broke, the Gauls outside feared a counterattack and pulled back. Inside Alesia, Vercingetorix's assault stalled. His men had to fill in Roman trenches just to reach the walls. By the time they did, it was already too late. The defenders fell back into the town. But the Gauls weren't done. Scouts had found a weakness. On the northern ridge, where the Roman position was less secure, it was steep, hard to build on, and the fortifications were thinner. Caesar had posted only 2 legions to hold it. The Gauls prepared one last, massive effort. 60,000 warriors were chosen to strike the ridge. Their commander would be Vercingetorix, a relative of Vercingetorix. Before dawn, they marched into position, and at midday they launched their attack. The defenders in Alesia moved in sync. Vercingetorix led another sally from within, hitting Roman positions wherever they seemed weakest. It was chaos. On the ridge, Roman defenders were pushed back. Missiles rained down. The Gauls surged up the slopes. Vercingetorix was throwing everything he had at the Roman line. Caesar responded fast. First, he sent Labienus with 6 cohorts to reinforce the ridge. Then Brutus followed with more troops. Then Fabius. Still, the Gauls kept coming. The Roman line was on the edge of collapse. At this point, Caesar no longer delegated. He went himself. Wearing his red general's cloak, a signal to his men that he was taking personal command, Caesar marched on the ridge with fresh cohorts and rallied his troops. His presence alone steadied the line. Orders came quick and sharp. He coordinated his men, moved reserves into place, and spotted an opportunity. He sent part of his cavalry, sweeping around the ridge, not to defend, but to strike. Surprised and surrounded, the Gauls faltered. Now Caesar gave the order. The Romans dropped their javelins and charged with swords. Cohorts surged forward. The tired defenders on the ridge rallied and pushed back. The cavalry slipped out of the outer fortifications, looked around, and suddenly hit the Gallic relief army from behind. The cavalry cut into the Gauls from the rear. Panic spread through the Gallic ranks. What had started as a final, desperate push now turned into a rout. The Gauls tried to flee, but the Roman cavalry was faster. The slaughter was brutal. Those who could escape ran for the hills, but many never made it. As night fell, Caesar sent his cavalry out again to finish the pursuit. The next morning, Vercingetorix called a council of his remaining chiefs. He told them that he would offer himself to Caesar, either to be executed or surrendered as a prisoner, if it would spare the rest. The leaders agreed. They rode out and presented themselves to the Romans, laying down their arms, and then, in full armor, Vercingetorix mounted his horse and rode to Caesar's camp. He dismounted without a word, and quietly he surrendered. The siege was over, and though scattered resistance would continue, the defeat at Alesia broke the back of the Gallic unity. The tribes were never able to mount a campaign on this scale again. For Caesar, it was the crowning moment of his Gallic campaigns, a victory that would make him not just powerful, but dangerous in the eyes of Rome's old guard. The Senate had reason to worry. With Gaul secured and his legions loyal, Caesar now stood at the edge of a new war, not against foreign tribes, but against Rome itself. The next time he crossed the river, it wouldn't be the Seine or the Loire. It would be the Rubicon.